I used to think I just wasn't good at languages, but today I speak 5 of them. It's been a long process with a lot of mistakes, so if I could go back in time and give my old self some advice on how to learn a language faster, here are the 20 lessons I'd give him. Lesson number 1. Language is not math. We're all told that language learning is about textbooks, courses, and grammar tables. But that never worked for me. The truth is that language learning is not about memorizing a bunch of rigid rules and recalling them on the spot. And seeing it that way is the reason why most learners fail. Real fluency isn't logicking your way through a conversation, having to use all your brain power every time you want to say hello. And because of that, the way you're actually supposed to learn a language is, for the most part, just sitting back, chilling, letting the language get into your head and absorb it via listening to stuff and reading stuff in different contexts, and it eventually just clicking for you. Lesson number 2. Find your why. Back in elementary school, everyone around me was obsessed with video games, so I became interested as well. Now the thing is that these video games were almost always in English, and so was all the best content made about them. So to play these games and understand this content, I was essentially forced to learn English. I had no choice. Quitting wasn't really an option, since the thing that I was most passionate about in life at that time was so deeply tied to the language itself. So if you ever feel low on motivation, consider asking yourself, is your why for learning that language and the way that you're learning it in actually strong enough? If not, try to reevaluate, look at your methods, look at the language you've chosen, and find ways to integrate it with things that intrinsically motivate you. Lesson number 3. Fluency is a lot more than just words and grammar. Anytime I've spoke to a Japanese person and I've been humble instead of saying thank you in response to a compliment, I've always gotten a positive reaction. That's because every country and every culture have their own set of norms and socially accepted habits. If you ignore them, you'll be grammatically correct but socially awkward. So learn a little bit about how people act in that culture and then slightly change your own behavior to sound a lot more natural. Lesson 4. Language learning takes time. Have you ever seen one of those guys who claim they speak 50 or 100 languages and wondered, how the hell is that possible? Well, it's not. Some people may look like they've got it all figured out, but you don't know how much they've just memorized versus actually speak. So take your time and realize that getting fluent is a marathon, not a sprint. Lesson number 5. Don't be a textbook warrior. Most learners sound like they've been living in a classroom for the past decade. If you spend all your time on textbooks and apps, you'll only learn the safe, polite, and non-offensive way of saying things. But that's not usually how natives actually speak. Instead of just memorizing default expressions and formal rules, try actually imitating natives. Every time you see a word or a rule, think to yourself, do natives actually use this, or is it just a Duolingo thing? Lesson number 6. Think in systems. You might see language learning as a checklist. A bunch of activities you do that have no relation to each other, you put them together and boom, you're fluent. Well, it's actually much more like a system. And if one part in the system is broken, so will the others. Your vocabulary affects your listening, which affects your grammar, which affects your speaking. So you don't just gotta learn more, you gotta specifically look at the system as a whole and identify which part of it is the weak link and then focus on that one to improve exponentially faster. Lesson number 7. Don't draw what you haven't seen. In ancient Japan, some artists try to draw tigers from just hearing them described to them, without having ever seen one. This resulted in these drawings of big striped house cats that looked kinda similar to tigers, but not really. And that's just how you're gonna sound like if you try speaking before you even know what to imitate. You don't have to wait forever, but you should at least have an understanding of how the language sounds like before you try speaking, because otherwise you have no clue what you're supposed to speak like. Lesson 8. Utilize passive learning. Language learning does not have to be 100% active to be effective. And if you're short on time, an easy hack to get more learning done is just combining the cognitive demanding task of language learning with less demanding ones or more physical ones. Almost any time I exercise or go somewhere, I always have a podcast or audio course playing in my headphones, and this is probably giving me hundreds of hours of just free progress in any language that I'm learning. Number 9. Trust your brain. I used to think I needed to understand everything in order for my learning to be effective. But all this did for me was keep me stuck in my head and hesitant when speaking. I spent hours on every grammar rule I could find, and I was constantly rewinding the videos I was watching just to catch every single word. When I instead just started chilling and not really worrying about decoding every little detail of the language, I realized my results got better than ever. Lesson number 10. Try an extreme accent. One of the ways actors tend to learn accents so quickly is by going extreme. I used to have a pretty strong accent in English, probably from speaking in a very lazy way to a bunch of people in Counter-Strike voice chat. But the way that I broke all these bad habits that I got was by deliberately trying the most extreme accent I could find. I essentially went full movie character and then sort of dialed it back from there. What this does for you is that it gets you used to the new mouth movements and it helps you build the right habits. Because it's very easy to fall into the habit of just speaking in a way that's most comfortable for you, and unless you get yourself used to how a native speaker actually sounds, you're never gonna sound anything like it. Lesson number 11. Talent doesn't matter as much as you think. Have you ever thought that you're just not good at languages? I know I have. But when I actually tried, with a reasonable method and some effort, I realized that wasn't really true. Yes, language talent definitely exists, it is a real thing, but it's usually not the main reason someone isn't getting results. So instead of crying about it, let's realize that we can all get fluent in any language we want, and that effort and method matter way more. Number 12. Use spaced repetition. Most people study inconsistently and then they jump from topic to topic, so they're never giving their brain the chance to actually remember the stuff that they're studying. The simple fix for this is just spaced repetition, basically spreading out your learning. This basically means seeing a word 3 times a day, twice tomorrow, and maybe once in 5 days. And research has shown that this can actually be around twice as effective for learning in comparison to just cramming stuff all in one day. Lesson 13. Use meta-learning. When I started learning Spanish, I pretty much just downloaded Duolingo and got straight to work. And while it's good that I took action quickly, I also think that my results would have been a lot better had I just spent some time initially learning about how to learn. So if you're dissatisfied with your results, consider taking a little break from studying and instead learning more about the process of language learning and also about how the language that you're trying to learn is structured. Doing this, setting some clear goals and building a little plan might take you a few hours or even a dozen hours, but it could potentially save you hundreds in the long run. Number 14. Embrace the struggle. Could you name me one thing you fail at every single day, but you still keep doing? That's language learning. And if you want to succeed, you gotta get used to it. You might mess up sometimes and say the wrong word. Big deal. And you might feel completely lost when hearing the language. But these are all just signs that there's more room for you to grow. And with time, you'll experience them less and less. So embrace the struggle and just keep learning. Lesson 15. Words are more than just definitions. In Swedish, there's a word called lagom that we use pretty often, but there's no real translation for it. It means something like not too much and not too little, but it doesn't represent just one thing, it's more of a concept. The mistake a lot of learners make is not realizing that these kinds of words exist in every language, which is why context is so important and the key to sounding natural in any language. Not every single word will have a one-to-one translation, and expecting it to is the reason that you're still not fluent. Number 16. Lower the barrier to study. I used to be really inconsistent with my language learning, but an easy hack I found to mitigate this was just lowering the barrier to get started and increasing it for all the distractions. A trick I love for this is making and having different YouTube accounts for the different languages that I'm learning. That way I no longer see my distracting home feed and I just see content that helps me get more fluent. All you gotta do is to make the account and then look up things in that language. Then whenever you see a video that's not in your target language, just press not interested. That way you're gonna get more and better content in the right language with less distractions, which is a win-win, I think. Lesson 17. Live the language and act like a native. So many learners think they gotta wait until they're perfect to enjoy the language and live their life in it. But that's just not true. No successful language learner just studies a language. They live it. They might use a textbook or an app, but they also have their own favorite artists, TV shows, and movies. They act almost like they already speak the language and like they've been a native speaker from the get-go. One of the coolest moments I've had related to language learning was meeting my favorite Japanese rapper in Tokyo. And that would have never happened if I just stuck to learning with my old Genki textbook. So, doing it this way instead will make your motivation so much higher and just make the whole process 1,000 times more fun and effective. Number 18. Do less. Look at this graph. The circle on the left is probably you right now. Duolingo, a textbook, a couple of YouTube videos, maybe another app, and more, all at the same time. The issue with this is that no individual app or resource is ever gonna make or break you. So by trying to do them all at once, you're essentially just guaranteeing that you never give one of them the attention or focus it actually requires. I know my results skyrocketed when I stopped trying to do everything at once, looking for the best new app or new flashy resource, and instead I just picked a few and stuck to them. So the lesson is to do less and do those things better, because your time and energy are limited. Number 19. Language learning is so much more than just learning. It opens up a whole new world that wasn't there before. I've met so many cool people and had so many cool experiences thanks to the languages that I speak, and I feel like I'm just getting started. It's okay to feel unmotivated sometimes, but just remind yourself of the end results and all the possibilities that could come from that. Language learning can be hard, but it's worth it, so don't give up. Lesson number 20. Beware of extremes. A lot of people would try to sell you on this one thing or one method. But even among scientists and linguists, there's still debate about what's actually more effective. So don't believe anyone who say they have the magic solution, including myself. Everyone who gives advice on something can be wrong, no matter how many titles they have before their name or how many languages they've learned. Idiots come in all shapes and sizes, trust me, so try to evaluate everyone's arguments logically and don't fall victim to dogmatism. The reality is that there are probably just a few things that matter when it comes to success in language learning, and if you put in effort over a long enough time span, you're fairly likely to get results. But if you want to learn about the 4 things that I think are the keys to fluency, you can click on the video right here. I appreciate you watching, and until next time, keep learning.